All right, folks, let's do the weekly overview. This is another one of those weeks where the general messages that I have to say or give you about this week are more important than the actual aspects that are occurring. To that point, let me list the aspects that are occurring this week. Today, on the 25th, and today and tomorrow's aspects I covered in last week's video, but we'll go through it again so that you're not like, what is he talking about? What aspects do I need to watch last week's video? Let me just go over it. Today, on the 25th, Venus enters Leo. And Venus, after entering Leo, trines Saturn. Tomorrow, she trines Neptune and opposes Pluto. So today and tomorrow are all about Venus entering Leo and making her three big entrance aspects: trining Saturn and Neptune and opposing Pluto. Venus in Leo, Pluto in Aquarius, Neptune and Saturn in Aries. And these aspects are exact today and tomorrow. So really the impact of these aspects will have been felt through last week, which is why I included them in last week's video, but we'll talk about it this week as well. Now, on the 31st, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, on Friday, Mercury trines Chiron. Mercury in Leo trines Chiron. And Mercury, just to be clear, has now, as of today, is leaving his shadow degrees. So Mercury entered the shadow degrees on June the 29th, went retrograde July 17th, went direct August the 11th, and today leaves his shadow degrees. So he moves towards trining Chiron, and that is the first aspect he makes after being direct. And we'll talk about that. And then on that was on Sunday, Mercury trines Chiron on the 31st. And on September the 1st, which is next Monday, Saturn enters Pisces, and on the 2nd, Mercury enters Virgo. And on the 3rd, Mercury squares Uranus. So let's just go through this again. Today, Venus enters Leo, and after entering Leo between today and tomorrow, she trines Saturn and Neptune in Aries and opposes Pluto in Aquarius. On Sunday, the 31st, Mercury, having cleared his shadow degrees, moves further forward and trines Chiron in Aries. So here we have a second set of trines between a planet in Leo, Mercury this time, trining Chiron in Aries. Venus, of course, as she moves forward in Leo, is going to do the same thing. And then next Monday and Tuesday, we have two planetary shifts. Saturn retrogrades back into Pisces and Mercury enters Virgo. I'm not going to talk about Mercury entering Virgo today, and I'm going to go backwards with these aspects. Saturn entering Pisces on the 1st makes it very important this week, all the way to the end of the year, indeed all the way to February of next year. Saturn being in Pisces is the most important aspect that is going on in our charts. We have one final shot at what I have been calling stabilizing the Pisces part of the chart. And whatever now needs to be done, we made a certain amount of progress through March, April, earlier this year. Now we get one more shot at setting boundaries and taking accountability for our health and our highest potential in the house occupied by Pisces in your chart. And if you are intrigued by this or want to know more about this, there are plenty of videos I have done over the years on this particular topic, but the last one that I did was, if you just scroll down my list of videos, the free videos that are offered to everybody, you will find a video that takes a bird's eye view for the rest of 2025, just before the new moon in Virgo video, the proper new moon in Virgo video, not the pep talk, which I did a couple of days ago, which was, I thought, hopefully helpful, but the one before that, I did a new moon in Virgo video, and right before that, I did the eagle eye view of 2025. Take a look at that video if you want further information about stabilizing the Pisces part of the chart. If I talk more about this, dear viewer, those members and subscribers who have been watching my channel for a while will just throw their phones against the wall. I think that and I'm going to be talking about stabilizing the Pisces part of the chart all the way to the middle of February next year. So I don't want to say more about it other than to say What is left? What is pending? What toxicity and energy leak needs to be eliminated in the house occupied by Pisces in your chart that has been brewing since 2012, may have reached some sort of crisis point in 2016, 17, 14, 15, but especially 16, 17. And since March 2023, you have been in the process of stabilizing, either by setting boundaries, taking accountability for the Neptunian mess in the Pisces part of the chart, and either giving it structure or eliminating the energy leaks and the loss to the best of your ability, or making conscious decisions of what you're going to let go of. So more on this topic in the Eagle's Eye video that was done 2 or 3 videos ago, and the free videos that I'm offering on this channel, of course. And this week, it is important that if there are certain things we feel like we want to have in place before Saturn comes in and starts to force actions on our part and demand that we start to take care of things in a particular. If you want to get ahead of that, this would be the week to do so. Number 1. Number 2, Mercury trining Chiron after clearing his shadow degrees. Whatever the purpose of that Mercury retrograde was, when Mercury entered Leo, and when the Sun entered Leo, but when Mercury entered Leo, and this week as Venus enters Leo, all these planets have made 3 primary transits, trining Saturn and Neptune in Aries and opposing Pluto in Aquarius. And these are all aspects that are affirming where it is that we're going, how we are taking ourselves seriously, holding ourselves accountable for the choices that we make and acting towards our highest potential in the Aries part of the chart, and countering Neptune's influence or desire to get us to sacrifice ourselves or undersell ourselves in the Aries part of the chart. And that underselling you may have gotten a first taste of it between March, the middle of March of this year and the middle of May of this year, and then the middle of May to September, the first Saturn has been in this part of the chart going, no, 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 no. These are the types of choices we make, and we take ourselves seriously, and these types of projects that Neptune might encourage you to do, where you are the primary, the most experienced person in the room, or giving more of yourself than you need to without adequate return, we are going to say bye-bye to, because we are focused on your highest development. And as planets have entered the Leo part of the chart, whatever house is occupied by Leo in your chart, the energy of that planet, communication through Mercury, relationship building, and the stabilizing of and the protecting of what you value, your creative energy, your artistic energy, your beautification energy, your pursuing of financial opportunities, your bridge building is meant to support making the right choices in the Aries part of the chart to honor your highest potential. Also, these planets, as they enter Leo, are required to take some action from the Leo part of the chart to support Pluto's transformation for your highest benefit in the Aquarius part of the chart. And even while Pluto goes through the first 4 or 5 degrees of any house that he enters, which is where he's right now, he's loosening bonds and contracts. So some of that energy has been at work. When Mercury entered Leo, and around, I think it was June 26th or so, and right before he entered his shadow degrees, of course, he made these 3 aspects, trines to Saturn and Neptune opposing Pluto. He then went into his shadow degrees and has just gone over a certain section of the Leo part of the chart 3 times. And just as he clears it, he moves towards trining Chiron in Aries. And in Aries, in the Aries part of your chart, Chiron is trying to reintegrate some part of yourself that got separated from you due to conditioning, some sort of trauma in your childhood or teenage years, and the reintegration of that part of yourself and examining what caused that wound. And the examination of wounds with Chiron can be quite challenging and painful, because you can't examine a wound without being aware of it, without feeling it, without encountering the impact of it. And Chiron is working towards doing that. And I think that it's fair to say that these transits, as the planets entered Leo and continue to make their way through the sign of Leo, are quite forward-looking and constructive with regard to asking us to move forward in an empowered way. So something It could be a communication, the way you are communicating, decisions you're making around technology and transactions and interactions. Mercury retrograde through the Leo part of the chart may have, in general, but especially in the house occupied by Leo, made you change course so that something that you were chasing towards between the middle of June and middle of July, you may have realized is not the right course for you, and may be making you change course, may have made you change course to another alternate, all in the same direction. And now that Mercury is trining Chiron, you may be feeling like that chapter is coming to a close, and you are learning and integrating important lessons with regard to how to honor yourself and operate in the Aries part of the chart, in the Leo and Aries part of the chart, in a more healed, empowered way. Something for you to kind of ponder and think about. What was that Mercury retrograde about? And as Mercury clears his shadow degrees for the third time, he moves towards trining the planet of healing and integrating ourselves in the Aries part of the chart, almost giving this entire Mercury period in Leo so far a kind of meaning. Mercury started by trining Saturn and Neptune and opposing Pluto, and 5 or 6 days after clearing his shadow degrees, moves towards trining Chiron. So we opened Mercury in Leo before he went into his shadow degrees with the trines to Saturn and Neptune and Aries and opposing Pluto. And we close out Mercury through his shadow degrees with that trine to Chiron. So something related to that retrograde and the choices made around it and the going back to the drawing board and the changing course. Now integrating those lessons may help you act and communicate from a more empowered place moving forward, a more healed place moving forward. Now, Venus comes into Leo. Venus is the last of the personal planets to come into Leo, and Venus comes in today and is going to be in Leo till September the 19th. And this is also, a lot this week is about moving forward from Mercury retrograde, because Venus, when she follows, and some of you heard me say this before, the sun and the new moon and Mercury, she comes into that part of the chart that has had all this attention, and particularly Mercury retrograde, and she comes in to kind of scatter blessings and to smooth the way and to bring in a sort of day-to-day luck and to open up the doors that are right for us from a creative perspective, a monetary perspective, a financial perspective, a relationship perspective. And she imbues the house that she is moving towards and the people associated with that house, whether it is you or somebody else, with a Venusian grace, courtliness, desire for harmony, diplomacy, and this kind of relationship building energy. Remember, I say about Venus that the quality of our abundance is dependent on the quality of our relationships. And Venus encourages an awareness of what we value and the protection of it and wisdom around that. So it is not about sharing things with people we don't trust. Venusian feminine energy is a very internal, powerful, personal with regard to where trust is given and placed and how matters are dealt with. But Venus also encourages a non-judgmental approach to interacting with and dealing with others, handling matters related to boundaries at her best in a way that makes the other party still feel respected. It still keeps the bridge present. It doesn't burn or destroy that bridge in the setting of boundaries. The downside of Venus is that she can make us passive and non-active. Depending on your relationship with how you honor the Venus part of yourself and the house that this is occurring in, you're going to have to gauge if there is a danger of passivity and taking the foot off the gas pedal. I hope you don't. And Venus has a tendency to bring opportunities that we can respond to. So after Mercury has made us evaluate what we were rushing towards or committing to or thinking was going to be part of our future between mid-June and mid-July, and go back to the drawing board and really evaluate whether that needed to be part of the picture or whether we would need to move our eggs to the next basket, Venus comes in to say, all right, all that work is done. Let us make relationship, financial, creative, artistic, beautification decisions and take actions that will help us act from the highest part of ourselves in the Aries part of the chart. By taking those actions from the Leo part of the chart, let me do something and move in such a way that I can contribute to Pluto creating this transformation, and let me start to smooth out the kind of bruised energy that a Mercury retrograde period necessarily introduces into our lives. Necessary to go back to the drawing board. But this week is all about moving forward from that Mercury retrograde. We know now which basket we are putting our eggs in. We know how we are moving forward. We know that we have switched tracks. We might be moving in the same direction, but we have gone back to the drawing board. And those of you who have Mercury retrograde in your birth charts have made your decisions, and we now for the next 3 months are going to be going down a particular track that Mercury retrograde adjusted for us. That is what's going on from a transit perspective. You are also, at this point in time, we are far enough from the new moon that our energy has returned and the moon is no longer dark. It is between September the 1st, August 31st, September 1st, this coming weekend, and the end of September. Or if you want to be really precise, August 31st to September 28th, we are going to be in eclipse land. The week before and after eclipses. The first is a full moon lunar eclipse in Pisces on September the 7th. The second is a new moon solar eclipse in Virgo on September the 21st. And we enter that eclipse vortex on August the 31st and we leave it on September 28th. This is 1 week where you are spared the intensity of that energy and you can prepare for it. There's something at once forward moving about this week as the moon moves from being dark to expanding. And there's something about preparing for the energy that it is going to take to stabilize the Pisces part of the chart between September 1st and the middle of February. September 1st of this year, middle of February of next year. And also to make it through the eclipses. The pep talk I gave you, the pep talk video for the Virgo new moon, that was the last free video that I did, talked about not rushing changes. With the eclipses, you don't need to make the eclipse happen or hasten its happening. The eclipses will occur and the eclipses will create their transformation. And any hasty, premature decision-making might lead to challenges or even might sabotage the effectiveness of the change that the eclipses are trying to reach. The example I gave in the pep talk video is, let's say you're trying to move towards incorporating more of a certain type of work into your life, but that's not paying as much as work you're currently doing. All you need to do right now is to shift your priority, and you know that the work you're doing right now is a source of stability, but is fundamentally stagnant. And you know that if you stay in that energy, that it could lead to loss. Whereas if you go in the direction that you're intuitively feeling called on to do, it would lead to, it's where you need to put your energy into. Another way of looking at it is, quite simply, when we wake up every morning, what do we truly know are our priorities? We may not be able to get to our priorities because we're committed somewhere else. But what are our priorities? You know, there's this saying, I don't know, I can't remember. There's this mantra. Does it come from one of the human design books that I read? I focus on my highest priorities, knowing that they are God's priorities for me. And those are linked to either Saturnian cleanup of energy leaks or moving in the direction that is right for us and that is calling us. It's a little bit like having, I gave this example in a reading earlier today, like a collar tag in a t-shirt that is itching you. You don't have to tolerate it. You can figure out how to settle that collar tag down or cut it off or do what you need to so that it's not an irritant. Those things that are nagging at you to get done, you may currently feel like the stagnant but stabilizing thing that you need to release in the Virgo part of the chart. That's how to tell whether you're on the right track. And the thing you need to lean into in the Pisces part of the chart. Or if that is too confusing for you, just what energy you want to move towards, all you need to do is put your focus on the energy on the new more and more. And a time will come when the old will have to give way to it. But the eclipses, this particular eclipse cycle, goes all the way to February 27. Some of us might release something in September. Some of us might release something by March the 3rd. Some of us might release something by February of next year. It's not for us to hasten that timeline as much as it is for become watchful and to be present that change is afoot. I can put my money on this for most people, that we have an awareness that the status quo cannot continue. And change is afoot. But how we effectively manage that change so that that change is constructive and ultimately stabilizing and smooth as possible, is by not acting rashly. There's a whole school of thought that says that during the eclipses, take as little action as possible. I'm not of that school. I think you need to just take the action that you need to take. And that may immediately dictate what shifts need to occur. And also remember, it's not for you to design the transition. If we go with that sort of archetypal example of wanting to move in a certain direction and having a job or something that is paying our bills in the meantime but is stagnant and can ultimately lead to loss, you don't know that as you put your energy more and more towards the new and you are unable to meet the requirements of the job, you don't know if the person who is managing the job position doesn't come to you and says, okay, do you want to work part-time? Do you want to work fewer hours? I understand what you're trying to do. Can we support it this way? Can you do? It's not for you to design what this transition is going to look like. The only answer is not, oh my God, I'm not able to make my commitment at the old place, so I have to quit. You can have a constructive conversation and say, if it is necessary, if it is needed, if the other party brings it up, if you feel it's something you need to address, to say, this is what I'm working more towards. I don't know what this means, but I have less and less time for this and I'm trying to do this or whatever it is. And see if the only solution is, well, then we'll accept your resignation, or whether there is something else that can emerge creatively. I don't know, whatever you're releasing in the Virgo part of the chart for each of you individually, if it's going to take you till February, March 2027, or it's going to happen sooner than that. So this week is a week when that process, we're moving out of Mercury retrograde and the shadow, and more decisively moving forward in a healed way, having made some choices. And now we get to prioritize, stabilizing the Pisces part of the chart, and focusing on our priorities, a lot of which I would not be surprised have to do with stabilizing the Pisces part of the chart, and honoring the North Node eclipses, leaning into some aspect of the Pisces part of the chart that may be related to that stabilizing energy or maybe separate from it, but in the same Pisces part of the chart where our growth is. And in pursuing and honoring and making more time for the new, it will signal to the universe that you're ready to move forward and to instigate change that is ultimately constructive for you, hopefully. So be clear about what change you're moving towards. Remain grounded with the eclipses, but understand that the eclipse is about change, and change is the only constant. There's no such thing as a stable life. I can hear some people say, well, but there is such a thing as a stabler life. And you've got to determine whether that stability and the stabler life keeps you from changing and evolving and a certain amount of adventure, or whether it forms and gives you a platform on which you can continue to grow and evolve. When does a certain amount of stability become the platform for growth? And when does that stability start to hinder growth? That is a personal decision we all have to make for ourselves. But right now, what you don't need to do, unless the eclipses demand it, and in some cases, for my case, for example, I know that something is coming up that is going to prompt a certain change. But I don't have to do anything that is destabilizing as a result of that change, because I don't know how things will end up getting designed. If it means that I'm moving towards something new, but ending something old, and that's the only way, then that is a sign to me. One of the things that you can do, and I mentioned this in my last video about the pep talk, is that one of the ways that you can prepare is to make sure that you have, if you are considering a significant transformation, then make sure you have the resources and the reserves to contribute to that. There's something very preparatory about this week, and that preparation has to do with taking the actions you need to take to stabilize the Pisces part of the chart proactively before Saturn gets in there and starts to create his own action that's going to demand us to respond to it. And there's something about this week that is also preparatory in terms of us starting the process of prioritizing the new and what we need to prioritize on more, and seeing how that gently or not so gently leads to things being adjusted and change being created. And finally, there's the idea of moving forward now that Mercury has left his shadow degrees with greater self-empowerment and having integrated Mercury's lessons in the direction that Mercury retrograde has encouraged you, the path that Mercury retrograde has encouraged you to take. And for a lot of people, that path will be a new path that emerged while Mercury was retrograde, and the path you were expecting would have a certain outcome you may have given up on because you may have realized that it might not be the path for you, or something about it does not quite meet the eye. It's always energizing when planets change signs, and Venus coming into Leo is welcome. We need Venus's energy in the Leo part of our chart to smooth down the feathers there. We need Saturn coming into the Pisces part of the chart because we want a certain energy leak, crisis energy to end. But it will mean that we will have to take action or respond to Saturnian notices and actions on the part of others, perhaps. Hopefully, if we work with Saturn's energy, we'll be able to resolve things. And Mercury coming into Virgo is also, again, helpful, necessary, inevitable. We just had the new moon in Virgo, and this new moon a few days ago, all of this is covered in the pep talk and then the new moon video as well in greater detail, is about introducing and responding to and creating and moving towards the new in the Virgo part of the chart. Because then when we come to the September 21st eclipse all the way to March 3rd eclipse, September 31st, new moon, solar eclipse, March the 3rd, full moon lunar eclipse in Virgo, our focus is going to be on releasing the old, or at least moving along that trajectory. There are 3 ways to engage with me: the free content I put on this website, the membership part of the channel where I put videos for each rising sign, and they've started to become detailed analyses of the rising sign charts. That is for $6.99 a month. And then you can also engage with me. Information on memberships and my email address in the description box below. You can email me if you're interested in a personal reading, and I can let you know what the rates and the options and the formats are. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Next to the subscribe button, there's a bell icon. When you subscribe, you can click on the wiggly bell on top, and you'll be notified when I do new videos. You can contribute to this channel for free by liking this video, commenting on it. You can contribute monetarily by using the thanks button or donating, and information on donations is in the description box below. Feel free to share content related to my website or tell other people about it if you think my content will be useful to them. Different videos have a different flavor. This is a weekly overview. You can take a look at my pep talk video if you're new to my channel, the new moon and Virgo video, the bird's eye view of 2025 to get a sense of the kind of content that I put out in the free part of my chart. Thank you, everybody, for your support and your kindness. Take care.